The city of Fairmont was waking up, sunlight glinting off courthouse windows and the hum of traffic rising with the heat. Judge Florenca Bell, known for her calm authority and sharp mind, walked the city streets in plain clothes, her signature braids tucked under a simple scarf. She liked to blend in, to see her city as it really was, unfiltered, unguarded, honest. On this particular morning, Florenca was running late. She'd stopped to help an elderly man with his groceries, and now she hurried toward the courthouse, her mind already on the docket. As she crossed Main Street, a police cruiser screeched to a halt beside her. Two officers stepped out, one young and nervous, the other older, with a hard set to his jaw. "Hey, you there!" barked Officer Rickson, the older cop. Florenca paused, surprised. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked, her voice steady. Rickson's eyes narrowed. "We've had reports of a suspicious person in the area. Mind showing some ID?" Florenca reached for her wallet, but Rickson snatched the scarf from her head, revealing her braids. The younger officer, Torres, shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, maybe—" But Rickson cut him off. "Quiet, rookie. We do things by the book." He turned to Florenca, his voice cold. "You people think you can do whatever you want." Florenca's heart pounded, but she kept her gaze level. "I'm on my way to work. Please, let me go." Rickson ignored her. "You're coming with us." He cuffed her roughly, ignoring Torres's protests. At the station, Rickson ordered Florenca to sit. "We've had trouble with gangs using braids to hide contraband," he sneered. "We're going to have to search you." Florenca's breath caught, but she refused to beg. "This is unnecessary," she said quietly. Torres hesitated, but Rickson was relentless. He grabbed Florenca's arm, yanking her to her feet. "You think you're better than us?" he spat. "You need to learn some respect." And then, in front of the entire station, he slapped her, hard. The room went silent. Florenca's cheeks stung, but she didn't flinch. She met Rickson's gaze, her eyes full of quiet fury and pain. 3 minutes later, the station phone rang. The chief's voice was urgent. "Where is Judge Bell? She's late for court, and her clerk says she was last seen near Main Street." Rickson's face drained of color. He turned to Florenca, realization dawning. You're Judge Bell?" Florenca met his gaze, her eyes full of quiet fury and pain. "Yes, I am." The room fell silent. Torres stepped back, horrified. Rickson stammered, I didn't know." Florenca stood, her head high, her posture unbroken. "You didn't care to know," she replied. "You saw what you wanted to see." The chief arrived moments later, his face ashen as he took in the scene. News of the incident spread quickly. The city was outraged. Protesters gathered outside the station demanding justice. Florenca, though shaken, refused to hide. She presided over her courtroom that afternoon, her head uncovered, her voice steady. "Justice is not about appearances," she told the packed gallery. "It's about truth, dignity, and the courage to do what is right." Rickson was suspended pending investigation. Torres, racked with guilt, came to Florenca's chambers to apologize. "I should have stopped him," he said, tears in his eyes. Florenca listened, her anger tempered by empathy. "You have a choice," she told him. "You can be better. You can speak up next time." The city launched a full review of police practices. Florenca used her platform to advocate for reform, insisting on training in bias, empathy, and de-escalation. She met with community leaders, police, and young people, listening to their stories and sharing her own. Her courage inspired others to confront their own prejudices and to demand change. Rickson's trial was public and painful. He tried to justify his actions, but the evidence was clear. Florenca testified, her words measured but powerful. "No one is above the law," she said, "not even those who enforce it." The jury found Rickson guilty of assault and misconduct. He was sentenced to prison, his career and reputation in ruins. Florenca's journey did not end with Rickson's conviction. She continued to serve as a judge, her shaved head a symbol of resilience and justice. She mentored young lawyers, especially women of color, teaching them to stand tall in the face of adversity. She spoke at schools and community centers, urging everyone to see beyond the surface and to fight for a world where dignity was not a privilege, but a right. The city of Fairmont changed, slowly but surely. Police training improved, community trust grew, and Florenca's courtroom became a beacon of hope. Her story was a reminder that even in the face of cruelty, courage, and kindness could prevail, and that sometimes the greatest act of justice is simply refusing to be broken. Florenca's days became a whirlwind of interviews, meetings, and community forums. She was invited to speak on local news, her calm voice cutting through the noise. "This isn't just about me," she said. "It's about every person who's ever been judged by their skin, their hair, or their clothes. It's about the power we give to those in uniform, and the responsibility that comes with it." The city council called an emergency session. Activists, clergy, and ordinary citizens packed the chamber, demanding accountability. Florenca sat quietly in the back, listening as people shared stories of humiliation and fear. Some spoke of hope, too, of how her courage had inspired them to speak out, to believe that change was possible. Meanwhile, Officer Torres struggled with guilt. He requested a transfer to community outreach, determined to make amends. Florenca met with him privately, encouraging him to use his experience to educate others. "You can't change the past," she told him, "but you can shape the future." Torres took her words to heart, becoming a bridge between the police and the neighborhoods they served. Rickson's trial dominated the headlines. The prosecution presented damning evidence, body cam footage, witness testimony, a history of complaints ignored by the department. Florenca's testimony was the turning point. She described the slap, the humiliation, the years of quiet endurance that had led her to that moment. "I am not the first," she said, her voice steady, "but I intend to be the last." The jury deliberated for only a few hours. Rickson was found guilty on all counts. As he was led away in handcuffs, he glanced at Florenca, his bravado gone. She met his gaze, not with triumph, but with a quiet sadness. She knew that true justice was not about revenge, but about transformation. After the verdict, Florenca returned to her chambers, exhausted but resolute. She found a letter on her desk, unsigned. "Thank you for standing up. Because of you, I believe things can change." She smiled, tucking the note into her journal. It was a small reminder that her pain had not been in vain. The city began to heal. The police department implemented new training, focusing on de-escalation and implicit bias. Community liaisons were appointed, and a civilian review board was established. Florenca was asked to serve as an advisor, her insights shaping policy and practice. But the scars remained. Florenca still faced threats, still saw suspicion in the eyes of some officers. She leaned on her family, her friends, and her faith. She found solace in mentoring young lawyers. especially those who felt out of place in the halls of power. "You belong here," she told them. "Your voice matters." One evening, Florenca attended a vigil in the city square. Hundreds gathered, candles flickering in the dusk. A young girl approached her, eyes wide with admiration. "Are you really the judge?" she whispered. Florenca knelt, meeting her gaze. "Yes, I am. And so can you be, one day." The girl smiled, hope shining in her eyes. Florenca knew the journey was far from over. But as she looked out at the crowd, at the faces lit by candlelight, at the hands joined in solidarity, she felt a surge of hope. She had faced hatred and violence, but she had answered with dignity and resolve. She had shown her city and herself that justice was not just a word, but a way of living. As weeks passed, Florenca's story rippled far beyond Fairmont. National news outlets picked up the case, and civil rights groups reached out, asking her to speak at conferences and workshops. She hesitated at first, wary of the spotlight, but realized her experience could help others. "If my pain can spark change, then it's worth sharing," she told her sister Miriam over tea one evening. Florenca's first out-of-town speech was at a law school in a neighboring city. She stood before a packed auditorium, her shaved head a badge of resilience. "Justice is not about perfection," she said. "It's about courage. It's about standing up even when your knees shake." Students lined up afterward, some in tears, thanking her for her honesty and strength. Back in Fairmont, the police department's reforms began to show results. Complaints of misconduct dropped, and community trust slowly grew. Officer Torres, now a leader in outreach, organized listening sessions where residents could share their fears and hopes. Florenca attended many, always listening more than she spoke, always encouraging others to find their voice. But not everyone welcomed the changes. A small but vocal group protested outside the courthouse, accusing Florenca of dividing the city. She faced hate mail and online threats, but she refused to be intimidated. "They want me to be silent," she told her clerk, "but silence is what allowed this to happen in the first place." Florenca's family became her anchor. Miriam, a schoolteacher, organized a support group for women of color in public service. Their mother, Gloria, baked bread for the vigils and rallies, her kitchen filled with laughter and the scent of cinnamon. Florenca found strength in these small acts of love, reminders that she was never truly alone. One day, Florenca received a letter from Rickson's daughter, Emily. The handwriting was careful, the words raw. "I'm sorry for what my father did. He was wrong. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like." Florenca wept as she read the letter, her heart aching for the girl who had lost her father to his own hatred. Florenca wrote back, her words gentle. "We are all more than our worst moments. I hope you find peace, and I hope your father learns from this." Emily's reply was simple. "Thank you for forgiving me, even when I couldn't forgive him." As the anniversary of the incident approached, the city planned a day of justice and healing. Florenca was asked to give the keynote address. She stood on the courthouse steps, the crowd stretching down Main Street. "We are here because we believe in something better," she said. "We are here because we know that justice is possible, even when it seems out of reach." The crowd listened in silence as Florenca spoke, her voice steady and full of conviction. "We cannot undo the past, but we can choose what we do next. We can choose to see each other, to listen, to act with courage and compassion." She looked out at the faces, young and old, black and white, hopeful and wary. Justice is not a destination. It's a journey we walk together every day. After her speech, people approached Florenca with gratitude and stories of their own. An elderly man told her how he'd been afraid to report police harassment for years. But her courage gave him hope. A teenage girl, inspired by Florenca's shaved head and unwavering presence, said she wanted to become a judge one day. Florenca hugged her, whispering, "You can, and you will." The city's Day of Justice and Healing became an annual tradition. Each year, more people attended, and the event grew into a celebration of resilience and unity. Florenca made it a point to invite those who had once opposed her, believing that true change required everyone at the table. Some came reluctantly, but many left transformed by the power of honest conversation. Meanwhile, Florenca's work as a judge continued. She presided over cases with fairness and empathy, always remembering the pain of being unseen. She mentored young lawyers, especially those from marginalized backgrounds, teaching them to lead with both strength and humility. Her chambers became a safe space for those who needed guidance, or simply a listening ear. Officer Torres's journey was one of redemption. He spoke openly about his failure to act, using his story to teach new recruits about the importance of courage and accountability. He and Florenca developed a mutual respect, their partnership a symbol of what was possible when people chose growth over guilt. Florenca's family remained her greatest support. Miriam's support group flourished, and Gloria's kitchen became a hub for activists and neighbors alike. Together, they celebrated victories and mourned setbacks, always finding strength in each other. But Florenca never forgot the pain of that day, the sting of Rickson's slap, the humiliation, the fear. She carried those memories with her, not as wounds, but as reminders of what was at stake. She knew that justice was fragile, that progress could be undone in an instant. But she also knew that hope was stronger than hate. One evening, as Florenca walked home from the courthouse, she paused at a mural painted in her honor. It showed her standing tall, head bare, surrounded by a diverse crowd. The words, "Justice lives here," were painted above. Florenca smiled, her heart full. She knew the work was far from over, but she was ready for whatever came next. As the years passed, Florenca's influence grew beyond Fairmont. She was invited to national conferences, where she spoke about the intersection of justice, race, and empathy. Her story was featured in magazines and documentaries, inspiring people across the country. But Florenca remained grounded, always returning to her city, her family, and her courtroom. One spring, Florenca was nominated for a prestigious award in judicial leadership. The ceremony was held in a grand hall filled with judges, lawyers, and dignitaries. As she accepted the award, Florenca spoke not of her own achievements, but of the community that had lifted her up. This honor belongs to every person who refused to be silent, to every voice that demanded justice, to every heart that chose hope over fear. Back in Fairmont, the police department continued to evolve. Officer Torres, now a captain, led a new generation of officers committed to transparency and service. He and Florenca often spoke together at schools and community events, sharing their journey from conflict to collaboration. Their friendship became a symbol of the city's transformation. Florenca's family thrived. Miriam was promoted to principal, and Gloria's support group expanded to neighboring towns. The kitchen table remained the heart of their home, a place where laughter and love were always on the menu. Florenca cherished these moments, knowing that true strength came from connection. But challenges persisted. New cases of police misconduct surfaced, and Florenca faced criticism from those who believed she was too lenient or too outspoken. She listened to her critics, always seeking to learn and grow. She reminded herself that justice was not about perfection, but about persistence. One day, Florenca received a letter from a young woman named Tiana. "I watched your story on TV," Tiana wrote. "I'm studying law because of you. I want to make a difference." Florenca invited Tiana to shadow her in court, mentoring her through the challenges of law school and the realities of the justice system. Tiana's determination reminded Florenca of her own journey, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The annual Day of Justice and Healing became a statewide event, drawing crowds from across the region. Florenca's speeches were always the highlight, her words weaving together pain and hope, struggle and triumph. "We are the authors of our own story," she told the crowd. "Let's write one we can be proud of." As the sun set on another year, Florenca stood before the mural in the city square. Children played nearby, their laughter echoing through the streets. She traced the words, "Justice lives here," with her fingers, feeling the weight and the promise of those three simple words. She knew the fight for justice would never end, but she also knew she was not alone. On the 10th anniversary of the day she was assaulted, Fairmont held its largest day of justice and healing yet. The city square overflowed with people, families, students, police officers, and elders. Florenca stood at the center, surrounded by those whose lives she had touched. The air buzzed with hope and remembrance. As she took the stage, Florenca looked out at the crowd, her heart full. 10 years ago, I was reminded how fragile justice can be, she began. But I also learned how powerful we are when we stand together. We have turned pain into progress, fear into courage, and silence into song. She spoke of the journey, of setbacks and victories, of the importance of listening, and of the need to keep fighting for those still unheard. She honored those who had stood with her, especially Officer Torres, who now led the city's police department with integrity and compassion. The crowd cheered as Torres joined her on stage, their handshake a symbol of reconciliation and hope. After the ceremony, Florenca walked through the city, stopping to talk with old friends and new faces. She visited the mural, now expanded to include images of community members who had become leaders in their own right. Children played at her feet, their laughter a testament to the city's transformation. Florenca's family gathered for a celebration at home. Miriam, now a mother herself, thanked Florenca for paving the way. Gloria, her hair silver and her eyes bright, hugged her daughter tightly. "You showed us all what it means to be brave," she whispered. That night, Florenca sat by her window, watching the city lights flicker. She reflected on the years of struggle and the moments of joy. She knew there would always be new challenges, new battles for justice. But she also knew that her story, and the stories of those who had walked beside her, would inspire generations to come. As she drifted to sleep, Florenca dreamed of a world where dignity was never questioned, where justice was not a privilege, but a promise. She knew that dream was possible because she had seen it begin in Fairmont. And so, the judge who was once humiliated became a legend, a symbol of moral justice, bravery, and the hidden struggles of everyday people. Her story was a reminder that even in the face of cruelty, courage and kindness could prevail, and that the greatest act of justice is simply refusing to be broken.